Hello and welcome to Developers Den. I am 𝐏𝐚𝐲 𝐀𝐟𝐭𝐞𝐫, I'm a front-end developer, and today we are going to start a new video series where I'll be creating a React Native project from scratch. So today we are building Tripify, which is a travel expense manager. So why this video? I think there are a lot of videos on YouTube which just teaches you what is React Native, but this video series will be a practical approach towards learning React Native. I'll be teaching everything from scratch. So if you don't know anything about React Native, if you don't know what React Native is, what Redux is, just chill, because watch this entire video, code along with me, and I'm sure that by the end of this video you'll have a full-fledged application ready for you for both iOS and Android, which you can add to your resume, which you can show to your friends, and which you can use yourself. So that's it. That's about the video that I'll be building. So without further delay, I'll be giving a quick demo of what we'll be building in this series. And yes, also what you'll be learning in this entire video series. So you'll be learning React Native from scratch. You'll be learning Redux state management. If you don't know what Redux is, how to use Redux, what is state management, I'll be explaining everything. So in this series, I'll be explaining each and every line of code that I'll be writing. Apart from this, you'll also be learning creating beautiful layouts, creating beautiful UI, and using illustrations very well in your application. So let's go, let's see the demo of the video, and from the next video onwards, we'll start creating our application on VS Code. So here's a quick demo of what we're going to build in this project. So this is a React Native application. I'm naming it this Tripify. As you can see, since there are no trips added yet, there is an empty state which says you haven't recorded any trip yet, and there's a add new trip button. So this is the home screen that we have. It's very minimal and it's very simple. Now when I click on add new trip, I'll go to this screen. This banner will be selected randomly. I'll show you in the code how, and we can just enter the place wherever we are going. Let's say Manali, which is in India, and and whenever I add this trip, you can see that the trip is added on my home page. And if I click on add new trip again, you can see the banner is changing. Let's say this time it's Gangtok, which is again in India. And if I add this trip, you can see Gangtok is also added and the banner images are saved. So all this is done through Redux. So we'll be using Redux and React navigation for this application as well. Now whenever I click on any of the trip that I have, you can see since there are no expenses added for Manali trip, I can't see any expenses, and this is again an empty state that I'm going to tell you why it is very important to have an empty state in your project. Now when I click on add expense, you can see here that this is the add new expense page. The expense could be for anything. Let's say dinner at a restaurant, and how much, this is the amount that we're going to put. Let's say 2000 rupees, and this is in the category of food. And when I click on this add expense, you can see this expense is added on my Manali trip page. And if you'll go back and if you'll open Gangtok page, you can see the expense is empty for Gangtok, but it's there for Manali trip. And all the expenses are color coded as per the category. Let's try another thing. Let's say bought shirt, which is for, let's say 2500 rupees, which is in the category of shopping. Now if I click on add, you can see this is a different color code. So this is the entire application that we are going to build. As you can see, we are using a minimal UI, we are using very subtle colors, and in this application I'm using React Native, I'm using React Navigation and Redux. So watch the entire video and code along with me if you want to build this on your own. So by the end of this tutorial series, you'll have this application on your local device which you can add in your resume and in your project. So without further delay, let's get started. So you saw the demo of the application. Now let's start the coding. So in this video, we'll be creating the template for React Native application. We'll be creating the navigation for our entire application, and also we'll be creating the skeleton screens. So let's get started. To create a React Native application, we just have to open our terminal. Before you start your terminal, make sure that you have the environment set up for React Native. You just have to go to the docs that we have here. Just go to get started on reactnative.dev. The documentation is very detailed, everything is given, whatever you need. You can watch other tutorials on YouTube on how to set up your React Native app, React Native on your device. Whether you're using Mac, whether you're using Linux or Windows, depending on those, your configurations will change. So for that, just go to environment setup, setting up the development environment. So there are two types of quick start development that we have. One is Expo and one is React Native. So Expo is the third party, you can say, where development is very fast, but there are some drawbacks for Expo. We are going to use React Native CLI. Just make sure that you have Node, you have Watchman installed on your device. And if you're developing for iOS, make sure you have Xcode Simulator, which is an iOS simulator. Or if you're developing for Android, make sure you have Android Studio. So the best part about React Native is it's a cross-platform framework developed by Meta. So you can just code once and use it on both the platforms. So let's get started. Go to open your terminal. I'll just increase the size so that you can see. So once you have opened up your terminal, just go to your destination folder. And the command for this is npx react native init, and let's just give it a name which is trippy5. So this will create a template for us. As you can see, it's downloading the template. It will install all the necessary dependencies. It will set up our package.json, and it will also create a basic structure for our application. Since we are going to clean that, so this will take a few minutes depending on what are the configurations of a laptop. I'll recommend a laptop having at least 4 GB of RAM, because the processes that we are going to run are quite heavy. And if you're running Xcode iOS simulator, or if you're running Android Studio, then it is going to eat a lot of RAM. So make sure your device is compatible enough. So little bit more about React Native, that it's based on JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, it's very good for you. Otherwise, just follow this tutorial. I'll teach everything from scratch. You'll learn a lot. You'll learn how to create great UI, subtle UI, and you'll know how to use JavaScript very efficiently. Wherever necessary, I'll use the most efficient function. I'll use the most efficient method. So stay tuned, watch all the videos, and since it is installing till then, if you haven't liked the video, do like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel Developers 10, do subscribe to it. And yep, once it is installed, now as you can see, we have our template installed. I'll just open this in VS Code. So I'm using VS Code. You can use any editor that you want. There is no restriction on that. But since VS Code is used by most of the developers and there is a lot of community support, I prefer using VS Code, and there are other benefits as well. It has integrated terminal. It has a lot of extensions to use. So it's better that you use a development environment which is suitable for you. So as you can see, these are some of the template files that we have. Most of them are necessary, but some of them you can delete. So this is the entry point that we have, which is, if you go to index.js, you can see we are importing app, which is from here app.js, and this file is being rendered here. So whatever changes we'll make in this app file, and we can make our own folder structure. So it's very important that you follow a very rigid folder structure, because so that tomorrow if you're going to read your own code, you don't get confused. And also it's a good practice to keep your code segregated. So I'll just clear this up. Before this, I'll run this on my iOS simulator. To run this, the command is npx react native run iOS. Since I'm going to run it on iOS simulator, this is the command for me. And if you're going to run it on Android, you'll have to give the command npx react native run Android. I'll just increase the size for this so that you can see it better. I'll minimize this and I'll close this side. I hope my code is visible to you. So what we will do is, very quickly, I will minimize this and I'll create a setup where you can see the simulator and the code at once. Yep, this is much better. Now you can see that. So, okay, now you can see my simulator is visible and my code is visible as well. So for the first time, whenever you are building the app, it is going to take a few minutes, depending on the configuration of your laptop. Since this is being built, as you can see, my metro has started. So till then, we can create a folder structure. So the folder structure that I prefer to follow is something like this. That, yeah, you can see the application is started. This is the default template that we get from React Native. So what we can do is we can close the terminal. We don't need this anymore. We can make this shorter. Yeah. So this is our app.js. We can also, yeah, this is much better. So I'll delete this. And now I'm going to use snippets. So I have an extension called React Snippets. So this is very handy. I'll just type a shortcut, React Native functional component with style. So this will give me this pre-written code. If I save this, you can see this is app. This is visible here. I'll just give the style and everything in a moment. So this is it. So let's get started with the folder structure that I'll be following. So as I showed you in the demo, that the very first thing we need in our application is navigation. So for this, I'll use a navigation folder. The second thing that I'll be using is Redux. So I'll need a Redux folder. And the most important part about any app is that there are a lot of screens. So obviously we are going to use screens. So these are the three major folders that we have. Apart from this, we have a particular theme. So I don't like writing the hash code of colors every time. It's better to have a theme folder and you define your constants there only. And apart from theme, obviously I'm going to need some images. Obviously I'm going to need some icons, and for all of those I'll be having a assets folder. So these are the folders that I'll be using. And apart from this, since we are using React is all about components, as we all know. So we obviously need a components folder. So these are the major folders that we have. So let's get started with the very first thing, which is having our screens. So as I showed you in the demo, we had four major screens. The first screen was home, obviously. So I'll call it home.js. The naming convention that I'm following is a small case with snake case basically that I'm following. You can follow any naming convention for your folder structure or your naming convention, but make sure that you're sticking to that naming convention. Don't change it while you're coding. So this is first one is home.js. Second one, that is add trip. So the trip form that you saw, that will be my second folder, second file. Third one is trip expenses. For each of the trip that we saw, there will be a form to there will be a screen where you can see the expenses for that particular trip. And the final one is add expenses, add expense.js. So these are the four screens that we had in our application. Very quickly, I'll just go here, React Native NEFES. And yes, so if you are coding in React, make sure that the component name is capitalized, otherwise you'll get error. So this is our home. Second one is React Native function exponent, which is our trip expenses. If I'll save this, third one is add trip, RNFES, which is add trip. So this is our add trip page, and the final one is React Native functional component with style, which is add expenses. So add expense, basically add expense. So as you can see, why is there an error? Add expense is not defined. Okay, so I'll have to remove this S. So as you can see, the skeleton of my screens are there. Now to get started with this, we have to set up a theme and we have to download our assets for the application. So before all of that, let's do one thing. As you can see that whenever you are developing in iOS, you can see there is this status bar which takes a lot of space, and our content in the application goes beyond that. So this is not visible. So what we will do here, sorry, we'll go to components folder and we'll create a common folder where we'll keep all of our, I'll close this thing, all of our common components. So I'll say a common folder. This is the folder structure that I'm following. Again, you don't have to necessarily follow this code structure or folder structure. You can create your own. So the common component that I'm creating is screen wrapper. So screen wrapper.js. So first of all, RNFES, and I'll give it a name, screen wrapper. So this is a screen wrapper. Now what my screen wrapper will do, I'll wrap my every screen inside this screen wrapper to give it necessary padding and a background color. So let's give it a view, and here let's say I don't need this right now, and let's give it a style. So in React Native, we don't use classes, we don't use anything else, we just give it style and we pass an object here. So as you can see, stylesheet.create, this is the object. From here I'll take my styles for my application. So let's say styles dot whatever name we'll give here, we can use that later. So let's say screen wrapper. So how styles work in React Native, you pass the styles object here and you write the code for this inside stylesheet.create. So screen wrapper, here in this object I'll write my entire style. So padding top. For this, now I need some padding from the top side, right? Because as you can see, the app word is getting is hidden behind the status bar. So we need padding top. But there is a catch. This status bar is only effective in the iOS development mode, not when you're developing it in the and for the Android devices. It's automatically shown here. So for this, I'm going to use one of the uh, function, or you can say the values provided by React Native only, which is platform. Just import platform from React Native and you can check platform.os. If the platform.os is equal to iOS, which means if the platform is iOS, then give it a padding of 60, otherwise give it a padding of 0. Now, if you are familiar with the development in React or in JavaScript or normal HTML, you can see, you must have seen we give pixels here or percentage or rem or m, but in React Native we don't give anything. There is a default unit which it takes. For percentage we have to use it single quotes or double quotes, but for normal pixels or values we just have to write the number here. So now for iOS devices there will be a padding from top of 60. Now also I'll just show, since it's not visible here, I'll quickly go here and I'll wrap this inside this screen wrapper, and I'll wrap everything inside this option, this. Okay, now you can see nothing is visible. I'll tell you why. Because we are inheriting a children, so we are saying whatever is wrapped inside the screen wrapper, just render it as it is. So here, if I'll say children, you can see app. As you can see, there is a padding top of 60 for iOS device. Now apart from padding from top, I also need a padding from bottom. I also need a padding from horizontal, like this and this. So for this I'll say padding horizontal. For padding horizontal I'll say 24, and for padding bottom I'll say, let's give it a padding bottom of 32. Now if I'll say, you can see there is a padding from horizontal, padding from top, bottom is not visible yet. And apart from this I'll say minimum height. So what will happen if I'll, just to show you, if I'll give it a background color of, let's say, red, you can see this is taking only the space which it is consuming, but I don't want this. I want the wrapper to have at least the entire height of the screen. So I'll say minimum height should be 100%. As I told you earlier as well, that for percentage you have to enclose the value in single quotes or double quotes. Now red is obviously not the color that you want, so for this let's set up the theme. Now if I go inside my theme folder, so here I'll create a file called theme.js. So what will happen inside my theme.js, I'll export an object, export const, let's call it colors. So this will hold all the values for my colors that I'm going to use. So let's give it a name, background. So from where I'm getting this color, so basically what I did, I went to Dribble. So Dribble is a great platform to discover new UIs. A lot of UI UX developers put their work on Dribble. So you can just go to Dribble, you can check out any design that you want and you can take inspiration from there. Always give due credits wherever they are necessary. So from here just I saw a design which I liked and I'm using that only. So for background color I'll be using hashtag F9 F4 F3, F9 F4 F3. You can just experiment with a lot of colors and they will help you a lot. So since my background color is now defined, I'll go to screen wrapper and I'll import my colors object here and then background. So as you can see, there is a subtle shade of white and my background. So this is the background color that I'm going to use. So that's it. That's the screen wrapper that we had to build. Now that our screen wrapper is built, let's just go to our home and start developing the first thing that we need for our home application. So what we will do is we'll wrap this inside, we'll wrap each of the screen inside the screen wrapper. So what we will do is screen wrapper and we'll shift this inside the screen wrapper. We'll save it. Same for trip expenses. We'll import the screen wrapper and we will just wrap this inside this. We'll save this. We'll go to add trip. So there is a lot of repetitive code, but this will save us a lot of time when we are styling our components. So again, save this. And for the last add expense, let's say screen wrapper. And again, we are going to wrap this inside this. And done. So now that all of our files are wrapped inside this, but you can see it's still showing app. It's not home, it's not add expense, it's not add trip. So for all of that, we have to have a navigation system in our application. So for navigation, we'll be using React navigation. So let's say React navigation. Let's go. So React navigation is a library that I'm going to use. It's a layer, as you can see, it's extensible at every layer. You can write your code. So there are a lot of 3 different types of navigation that we have mainly, and we are going to use Stack Navigator basically here. So first of all, I'll have to open my terminal, and inside my terminal, I'll be installing the packages. So here's the documentation that we have. Again, React navigation documentation is fairly detailed. you can get all your queries solved here. So first of all, just install this React Navigation Native. Before that, it's a good practice to stop your running application before you are installing any package. So I'll just stop it. I'll copy this from here and I'll paste it. This will install React Navigation Native. And apart from this, if you are working on an Expo managed project, as I told in the beginning that we have two types of project for React Native, one is Expo and one is bare React Native. Since we are using bare React Native, I'll just blindly copy and paste this command here. So in my terminal, this will install these packages: React Native Screens, React Native Safe Area Context. Now, if you are on Mac, you have to install pods, or if you are on Android, you have to follow this instruction that's given here. It's very simple. It's just 2 or 3 minutes of work. Just go to this file that they are saying and make these changes. But since I'm developing for iOS, I'll quickly go to my iOS folder and I'll say pod install. So this will install the pod files for me. It will take a few seconds generating pods project. As you can see, done. Now I'll just go back to my previous screen, this previous folder, and again I'll start npx react native run iOS. Now it will take a less time compared to the first time to build the app again. So let's just wait. Till then, let's create a file here inside the navigation folder named app navigator app navigator.js. So as you can see, my React Navigation is installed and my application is up and running again. So app navigator is quite simple. If we'll go to the docs and we will see hello React Navigation. So since we are using stack navigation, we again have to copy this React Native stack, and I'll just install it here. So creating a stack navigator is quite easy. You just have to call a function from your native stack, which is create stack navigator, initialize it to a variable, let's say stack, and then you can just create screens by like this: stack.screen, name and the component, and wrap entire screen inside screen stack navigator. And then again you have to wrap your entire navigation of your application inside navigation container. So for your entire application, there will be only one navigation container, but you can have multiple stack navigators. So since this is also installed, so the best thing that we can do here is I'll just copy this and I'll go to my app file here. What I'll do, I'll just wrap my screen wrapper as well inside this. So I'll have to import this from React Native and I'll copy this, I'll wrap this here. Okay. Now as you can see, my entire application is wrapped inside navigation container. So now I'll go to my app navigator and here I'll copy this code as it is. So you can do this. It's fairly simple. So now I'll just remove this part since I don't need this. I'll remove this as well. And okay, so let's do one thing. Let's just remove everything. Let's copy just this one line, which is const stack. So now what this will do, this will call this function, this constructor function, function, create native stack navigator and initialize it to stack so that we can use it later. So as you can see, it's imported. Now also we have to import React since we are using JSX here. So I'll just import this everything from React. Now inside my stack navigator, let's say const app navigator. This is the file name that we're using. So this is the function, arrow function I'm using here. Now inside my app navigator, I'll just return, and inside my return, let's say stack dot navigator. Now whatever screens I'm going to put inside this stack will be wrapped inside this navigator. So we have 4 screens right now. So the command is for the code is fairly simple. Let's say stack dot screen and just close this. So this is a self-closing tab. So for every screen you have to give a name. So let's say first one is home, and a component. So these are the required things inside every screen. So the component is home screen. Home screen. It is not imported, just auto imported. Okay, let's say home. Yeah, as you can see, my home component is imported. So apart from this, we have three more screens. I'll just quickly paste it. So one thing to remember inside a stack navigator is that whatever component you'll keep on top will be the first thing to show on your application. So that's why I'm having my home component on top. So next screen that we have is add trip. Add trip. Let's import add trip here. Add trip. The third screen that we have is add expense. Add expense, and the component for this is add expense only. Add expense, and the fourth one is trip expenses. Trip expenses is the page where we can see all the expenses for a particular trip. So this is trip expenses. So as you can see, all of the screens are imported and my app navigator is created. I'll just export it by default. Export default app navigator. So now this is exported as well. So now what I'll do, I'll go to my app.js file and I'll replace the entire code here. So instead of having a view and a text, I'll just say show my app navigator. So yes, now you can see what is happening. It went inside the app navigator and the first screen that we have is the home screen. So one thing you have to see here is that we have a header visible. So we don't no one likes this kind of header. It's kind of ugly, but it gives you a safe area context. So but we don't need this, so we'll hide this. So it's very easy to hide it. Just go here and you have something called screen options. So just go to options. It's an object. Now inside the objects, let's say header shown, and make this as false. Now if you'll save this, you can see the header is not visible anymore. So what we can do is we can just copy this thing multiple times, and I'll paste it here, I'll paste it here, I'll paste it here. So yeah, this is it. My application is, yes, header is not shown anymore, and if I refresh my application, yeah, this is it. You can see the home button here. So this is the navigation that we were looking forward to build. To quickly show you that how this is working, I'll go to home, and here, since we wrapped entire component inside navigation container, so what we have to do here is by default we get a prop here called navigation. So and let's make something a button here. So in React Native we have something called touchable opacity, or you can use a button as well, doesn't matter. So let's say touchable opacity, and inside let's say text, and let's say click, and whenever I click on this touchable opacity button, I should move to add trip screen. So what I'll say, on press, a callback function, on press, let's say navigation dot navigate. Now navigation dot navigate, let's say add trip. So what is this add trip? This is the name of the screen that we provided inside our app navigator. As you can see, add trip. So now if I save it and if I click on this, you can see this is the add trip. So this is the add trip, and there is no way to go back right now. So I'll just reload this application. We'll implement all the functionalities later on. So one thing I have to check is that padding horizontal. Yeah, this looks good. This padding looks like a lot. If I just comment this line out, okay, let's give it a padding of 30 for now. Yeah, 30 looks much better. So a padding of 30 is better here. So also the padding, vertical padding, horizontal padding looks like a lot. So anyway, we'll see if this is not working, we'll change this later on. So for now, let's say 20. And if I save this, let's say 18 will do. Let's make it 16. So it's more of a hit and trial whenever you are creating your design. If you don't have a design, you have to do hit and trial. Otherwise, designers do provide you with great designs and all the values. So yeah, this is looking good. So this was the entire navigation part that we were looking forward to build. Now, as I told you in this section, that we'll also be using assets. So from where I'll be downloading my assets, there are two sites. One is Icon Scout and the other one is StorySet by Freepik. So these two are very great website. You can just go there and yep. So here I'll download travel illustrations, I'll download travel icons and so on. So you can find a lot of free icons here, free illustrations here. Make sure you use them, make sure you attribute them wherever necessary. So I'll download this from here, and in the next video I'll have them downloaded with me. You can find those on GitHub, or you can download your own if you don't like mine. So yeah, this is all about this part.